The history of Mitsubishi goes a long way back and starts before even the inception of the automobile. Mitsubishi started out as a shipping company before diversifying to other related industries with a few early unsuccessful attempts at making cars before something Zaibatsu, and then moving on to manufacturing a variety of motor vehicles before finally properly establishing Mitsubishi Motors as we know it today to cater to the growing demand of affordable automobiles in a growing Japan. Their early cars were pretty simple and basic, but they kept growing and getting better. Soon, their cars became known for their dependability, technology, and value for money. It looked like Mitsubishi were at the top of their game. Bestsellers, motorsport success, celebrity endorsements, and pop culture icons. Mitsubishi had it all. So, where did it all go so wrong? The Mitsubishi Attrage is a subcompact car made by Mitsubishi since 2013. In most parts of the world, this would be carrying the Mirage nameplate, which returned for this car after taking a hiatus in the early 2000s. I'm not sure if the Mirage nameplate was ever used here. The only Mirage on SG Carmart archives is a 1996 Cyborg, which I'm fairly certain is JDM. Over here, this was introduced as a replacement to the Colt, another nameplate with a horrifically convoluted history. Anyway, I better stop trying to make sense of Mitsubishi nameplates before I get an aneurysm. I mean, look at this crap. Colt Galant GTO. Colt Galant GTO. The hatchback version is also sold here as the, get this, Space Star. Classic Mitsubishi. Too cheap and lazy to trademark a new name, so they just recycle a dormant nameplate for a car that's completely different from what the nameplate was originally intended for. What a stupid name. Why would you name a car after the one thing it doesn't have? You don't call this the lightweight, you don't call this the comfort, and you most certainly don't call this space! But I do like the Attrage name though. It suits the car very well because it stands for atrocious, tragic garbage. Powering this thing is a 1.2-liter petrol 3-cylinder engine producing 79 horsepower and 106 Nm of torque. 79 horsepower. They didn't even bother rounding it up to 80. This engine is so weak that despite this car weighing only 950 kilos, it takes 13.5 seconds to accelerate to 100 kilometers per hour. 79 horsepower, 950 kilos, 13.5 second century sprint. This feels like a spec sheet from 1992, not 2022. The transmission is a CVT. There is no punchline here. Surprisingly, there have been no major reliability issues reported on this car, but that's probably down to this car being so void of any features and technology that there is nothing to break. I've heard of some CVT and head gasket issues, but I guess since all the parts on this car are made of cardboard, they probably cost only a few cents to replace, so no one bothers reporting any reliability issues. It is a Mitsubishi after all. Even if there's nothing to break, something will inevitably break. Also, I guess the people that buy these things are so used to getting constantly screwed over in life that their crappy little car breaking down for the 5th time this month is just a footnote in their miserable lives. I know this car is not incapable of breaking down, because this is a rental car and the first time I attempted to book this thing to do this shoot, the rental company cancelled my booking at the last second because the car broke down. The best part? I booked the car shortly after it became available again, and when I finally got it, the car was still making all sorts of concerning rattling and squeaking noises. The shop probably looked at all that jank and said, nope, that's pretty normal for an Attrage. So what we can interpret from this is, this car is not broken. It just feels broken all the time.
Just the two of us.
This car is advertised to have a rather impressive fuel economy of 18.5 kilometers per litre, making it one of the most efficient petrol non-hybrids. Unsurprising really, considering its low drag coefficient, lethargic little engine, frictionless cheap tires, and the fact that it's entirely made out of the lightest, cheapest, flimsiest materials ever dug out of this forsaken planet. But I didn't drive this thing far enough to get any fuel economy data of my own, so I will just take their word for it, because I do not want to spend any more time with this thing than I have to. Also, most half-decent hybrids will wipe the floor with this thing. Suspension is everyone's favorite combination. McPherson struts at the front, torsion beam at the rear. This thing rides and handles like a shopping trolley. You don't even get disc brakes in the rear. That's the level of poverty we are talking about here. And seriously, these are some of the worst brakes I've ever felt. How can the brakes on a car this small and light feel this numb and weak? The steering is also terribly vague and numb. It feels like the steering rack is made out of a used drinking straw. I cannot fathom how Mitsubishi even managed to make a car this bad in the 21st century. Internationally, the Mirage nameplate was reintroduced as a replacement to the Colt, with the intention of being a more affordable option for developing markets.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Everything.
To put it simply, this was meant to be cheaper and more disposable than ever before. You've seen the Mitsubishi Evolution, now get ready for the Mitsubishi Devolution. It won't be long before we go back to the stuff 90s Protons were based on. Except old Protons were actually kind of fun to drive and were decent cars by the standards of their time, and are still enjoyable in an ironic kind of way. This is just appalling. Well, at least it's safer than an actual old car, right? Look, even though it has both front and side airbags, they have little to no effect because this car's body structure is so flimsy that in the event of a crash, the unibody will deform in such a way that the front seat occupant's head will miss both airbags and go straight into the A-pillar. Ouch. Speaking of the interior, no, you're joking. Come on. This thing has cruise control. Oh no, I'm so poor. All I can afford is the Attrage. But, yes. I'll have the cruise control and the automatic, thank you. Does it actually work? No idea. I have no intentions of ever driving one of these things far enough to justify using it. Not like it can even go fast enough to justify using it anyway. No power seats though. Don't bother adjusting the seats because if you're over 165 centimeters tall, you will never be comfortable in here. Overall, the interior feels awful and looks awful, but the build quality actually isn't that bad. For a Mitsubishi. Just listen to these flimsy stalks crunch. It feels like a plastic fork snapping as you stick it in a piece of cold, stale, dry, leftover meat. The interior is absolutely awful and exiting the car won't be any more pleasant because now you have to look at the damn thing. This has to be one of the most visually offensive vehicles ever made. No coherence, no flow, no proportions, just an angry face for some reason. What are you so angry about? Can't afford a better car? Did Honda Fit steal your lunch money again? Seriously, if this car at least had a friendly face, I could at least give it some points for feeling honest and humble, like many old economy cars. But it's trying so hard to look serious and aggressive while having the proportions of a trash bag on a skateboard. Why do all these cheap cars directed at developing markets always have to look so ugly? It's not impossible to make small cheap cars look good. I have a feeling they're just trying to stop people from developing emotional bonds with these cars to retain their disposability. I bet that bike is worth more than a car. Oh, I thought that was an onion at first. Tony Abbott would be proud. Continuity error. In the previous shot, he still had most of his apple, but in the next shot, there's barely half of it left.
Sunrise
Just pull on the door hard enough and I'm pretty sure you can break it.
come down as seen when they hit
Oh, the familiar sight of warning lights on the dashboard of a Mitsubishi.
the ground. Children spinning around.
Who is this for? I mean, this car is already the size of a wheelie bin. It drives like a wheelie bin. It's so easy to park already. What's this gimmick for? It's nothing, just gimmick after gimmick after gimmick.
Till they fall down, down, down. I
Yeah, my point exactly.
rest my
For people not tall enough to ride roller coasters, I guess.
case. You are always
The perfect car for transporting 4 small ethnically vague adults.
this late, and you
That's the most amount of care and maintenance anyone has ever given to one of these.
know how much I hate waiting.
Yeah, no. Every time I see an ad for one of these, they add 1 kilometer per liter to it. Okay, 18, I can still believe. 19, maybe not. 21, you're just pushing it.
Round, round, round.
What the hell is an eco sedan? There's no such segment as eco sedan. Cars are only categorized by size, price, and body style. There are plenty of hybrids in this size class and price range. Once again, they're just making up crap.
Bitter heart.
Once again, just completely making up nonsense with no basis whatsoever. What do you mean smooth handling? Smooth compared to what? Smooth maybe compared to that hardtail going through a rock garden maybe, but smooth according to what? Can you show us the driving over rough roads? Or do you mean handling? Well, I hope it can go around a bend at the speed limit. That's not an achievement, Mitsubishi. That's an expectation. You can't just make up bogus claims like that. You can't just say something is good. You have to have some sort of data to back it up. What is this? You know something isn't quite right when a company just says their product is good by using their own made-up metric instead of using any form of tangible data.
Bitter heart tries to keep it all inside. Bitter
Wow, a folding bike and some groceries. Spacious, compared to the top box of a motorcycle maybe.
heart, bitter heart of mine.
The apple is almost as wide as the tire.
Of mine, of mine. Of mine.
60,000 ringgits, so that's like what, 20 Singapore dollars? Why does this car even exist? Why would anyone buy a car like this? Well, Scrooge McDuck, not everyone is made of money. You know, this is all some people can afford. then why are you still buying a car? It's not like you need it. Just take public transport or ride a bicycle, you idiot. Okay, time out. Okay, to make things very clear, I am reviewing this car from the perspective of the Singapore market. Singapore is a small country with fairly high walkability and decent public transport infrastructure. If you live in a backwards, undeveloped country that still relies on the personal automobile as a primary mode of transportation, some of this might not apply to you. But even in that case, why not just buy something better used, or save up a little and buy something better? It doesn't need to be extravagant, just get something that isn't complete trash. This car may be cheap, but even then it's still $90,000, so anyone that buys this is not poor, just stupid. That price, however, does make this the cheapest new car currently for sale in Singapore. The only other cars that come close in terms of price are these, which hardly anyone buys because if there's anything we hate more than cheap things, it's Malaysian things. This car is so cheap that it's not really even competing with other cars. It can't compete with other cars. Alternate modes of transport? Now that's a more fair comparison to this. A motorcycle, compared to that thing, is cheaper to buy, cheaper to run, cheaper to maintain, and probably more reliable. Most importantly, a motorcycle would be about 10 times faster, 100 times more fun, and 1,000 times cooler than an Attrage. Okay, sure, the Attrage has slightly more cargo capacity and is more suitable for carrying passengers, making it more useful for a family. A very small one. Although none of that will matter as nobody wants to breed with an Attrage driver anyway. In fact, nobody wants to hang out with an Attrage driver. They'd rather hang out with the cool biker guy. Again, they are cheaper, and most half-decent bicycle brands will have better quality control than Mitsubishi. Also, they are way more fun and probably not that much slower either. On top of that, bicycles are good for your health, while simply knowing that Attrages exist make you want to die. Though the Attrage does have one major advantage. There's actually infrastructure for that, unlike the bicycle. Unlike the Attrage, there's actually room for human beings in here. The only disadvantage, well, I guess public transport is slightly less hygienic than an Attrage. Not that most Attrage owners care about that anyway. Everything I said about cycling, but slower. What I'm trying to say is there really is no point suffering in a car like this. Scrambling for every last penny you have to finance an asset that is guaranteed to depreciate, and for what? Just to fit in with society? Just to sit in traffic and pollute the environment twice a day just to get to your miserable 9 to 5 and back? Look, I'm not saying never buy a car. In fact, I believe that the automobile can continue to be a part of most households even in the car-like future that we are aiming for. But the whole car ownership debacle is another topic that deserves its own video. But what if I really need a car? Then just call a cab. There's no shortage of hire cars and cab services in this country. No, you don't understand. Sometimes I really need a car. Then rent one as and when you need it. There are many options for hourly car rentals out there, And if you need anything more long term, there's plenty of car rental and leasing companies all over the island. Sure, it still isn't cheap, but you can definitely get a much more pleasant car with a less painful experience than trying to finance this disgusting, hateful little thing. Buying a car like this, all it's doing is contributing to congestion, polluting the environment, wasting your money, and wasting COE quotas, jacking up prices even further. What if you are one of those few people that really do need a car? Too bad. That wheelchair accessible MPV is now priced out of your budget because some loser spent a quota on a miserable, ugly little piece of garbage that he is gonna drive for 100,000 kilometers in 10 years before tossing it into the trash. To be perfectly clear, I don't have a problem with cheap cars. I've had tons of fun in crappy old cheap cars. However, I do have a problem with badly made, pretentiously styled and gimmick-filled cheap cars with built-in planned obsolescence made with the intention to push the narrative that the automobile will continue to be the default mode of transportation in the current economic and political climate in an age of environmental uncertainty. As a lifelong car enthusiast and former delivery driver, I have to say that driving is a dreadful, dehumanizing chore, and it's something that you can choose to not do. It's perfectly okay to not have a car. That's what they've been trying to tell you this whole time. If all you can afford is this hideous, disgusting little turd, then just don't buy a car. There's more to life than crawling across the CTE at 9 AM on a Tuesday morning, ERP gantry taking $2 and a piece of your soul every time you slither under it. You don't have to do it. You don't have to hand your money over to war criminals just to get a chance to join the rat race. The stinky, violent, deadly rat race. You're not gonna get stuck in traffic. You will just become a part of the traffic that all of humanity is stuck in.